Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Apologies for this DC Spotlight being late. It's coming out at the end of the week. I was traveling. Rocky's had a lot of stuff going on. I'm traveling again next week for work. Work's just crazy busy right now. But we'll try to get the one for next week recorded early, have it come out on time. But regardless, pretty solid week this week. Definitely some stuff to chat about. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. What do you think, Rock?
Um, I did not like this week. I didn't like. I, I can't say it was solid for me. I know why you say that it's solid, and I think if this makes any sense, I know exactly where you're coming from. But there's just too many. We'll get into it, and I'll explain why. But this is just. I've just my worst fears have been realized on at least three of them, and this was such a downer week for me. I thought it was predictable, and I thought it was could have been a better week, despite some titles that I think could have been much better than they were. But we'll get into it. And there isn't a single one that stood out as being really good for me. There's not a single title this week that I thought was as good as it could have been. Not one.
Well, there's always room for improvement. But there was one that I just really liked, and the Flash 1 Minute War continues to be really solid. So, anyway, we're actually starting off with one of the kind of weaker books I felt this week, but Poison Ivy #10 from writer G. Willow Wilson, art by Marcio Takara, Arif Prianto on colors, Hassan Otsman Elha on letters. I mean, again, I've talked a lot about how I'm just not a big fan of Poison Ivy. I am happy with the direction that it's taking, in as much as when this series started, G. Willow Wilson taking Ivy back to her really villainous roots. I mean, she was brutal. She was ruthless, murdering people left and right. We kind of, wondered out loud. It was such a tonal shift between the Poison Ivy that we had seen in pages of various Harley Quinn titles. That was all explained, and it didn't feel like, ex deus machina and just change for change's sake. It really did make sense what G. Willow Wilson was doing. That being said, I'm still just not a big fan of this title, because I'm not a big fan of Poison Ivy. But I do appreciate what G. Willow Wilson is doing. And the Takara art, it's kind of up and down for me. And this is a little bit of a down issue. It felt a little more unfinished than it has in previous issues, especially in backgrounds. Backgrounds are very light here when they're there at all. But I think for fans of Poison Ivy, I think for fans of Harley Quinn, they're more of the target audience for this than I am, and I imagine they're probably enjoying it. She's keeping it interesting, G. Willow Wilson, and I do feel like she has a very distinct idea in her mind of who Pamela Isley is, and it feels very consistent and very high quality in terms of narrative. Technically it's a great comic in terms of pacing and dialogue. And, although I may not be a big fan of Takara's execution in his line work, I can't complain about the composition. His storytelling is strong. It just, I don't know, maybe he feels rushed on the book. I'm not really sure, but it's a strong book technically. It's just, again, I don't feel like I'm necessarily the target audience for this. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts on this is that I guess Pamela Isley now is an SLUT. I guess that's okay, because I guess she sleeps around. Last month it was established that she's in love with Harley Quinn, and she's moving to Gotham City to be with Harley. But before she does that, she decides to go on a retreat with her roommate and sleep with her roommate. And she seems to think it's okay. It's not a big deal. Harley does the same thing. I guess that's what they are. They're both Harley and Pamela Isley. I guess they're both SLUTSs. I guess they always are, but they're promiscuous, and that's just their lifestyle. So I guess that's normal. I guess that's. But like you said, maybe it's not my. I guess I'm not the audience for it. Am I being too harsh? I probably am. I'm being a prude. I'm being a prude. I'm a Purian fanboy, and I can't believe that Pamela Isley here is written like she's just. Oh, not a problem. She's going to just sleep with whomever on her way back to Gotham City to be with the love of her life. I thought this was a terrible issue. The art's fantastic. The art's fantastic. But hey, no, she's having an orgy. She's having an orgy. Hey, From a Purient fanboy perspective, hey man, show me Pamela Isley, show her in all the orgies that she wants. She sleeps around on Harley Quinn. Is this the type of characterization we want? I guess maybe this is true to form. I don't I think this is I don't think this is really appropriate given the character that was being built here, given the character that had over the last 10 issues, this was someone who grew to realize that Harley Quinn was the love of her life, but she throws it all away for a quickie. It's not a big deal. Harley does the same thing. She does the same thing. I just thought it just never worked for me. And the other plot point here, which is interesting, is that the Lamia spores, which form part of the narrative from the very beginning, the Lamia spores now Pamela Isley has no control over, and they've basically gone public. So anyone who, basically, they're sort of leaking out of Poison Ivy now. And yeah, and it's a little bit wonky with her characterization. She's not really a bad girl anymore, unless she wants to be. She'll randomly kill somebody, I'm sure. But there's no real rhyme or reason to it. But I guess she's more of a good girl than not. But I guess she's not really a good girl. She doesn't really love Harley because she'll basically screw anything with tits and ass, and she'll make up an excuse for it because Harley probably does it, and maybe Harley I guess does. But if this is what DC is choosing as consistent characterization for both Harley and or Poison Ivy, I think it's terrible. Appalling. I think it's terrible. And I can't believe, I know that there's probably some people watching saying, oh my God, I'm sounding like such a prude. And I'm not. I mean, I'm all for sex and violence in comic books, but you know, if you're going to have some characterization, at least have it be consistent here. And this whole thing just rubbed me the wrong way. And you know, I prefer Poison Ivy as a villain, but what she is now, I don't know what the hell she is, but she's neither faithful to Harley. She's neither someone you can respect. She's a part-time murderer. I don't know what she is. And I realize that sales on this comic book have been increasing, and whatever J. Willow Wilson is doing, people are liking it, and I'm liking it for the most part too. But this has such so much inconsistency for me that I don't know. I'm sorry. I guess maybe I'm feeling a little bit all over the place myself, but this just rubbed me the wrong way, this particular issue. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I didn't. So I get it. I get what you're saying. I don't know. I guess I didn't feel that it was wildly out of character for her. First of all, it's been clear from the beginning that Janet, her roommate, has feelings for her. Poison Ivy has not reciprocated those in any way, shape, or form to this point. So
until now,
yeah, till now. But the whole point being, she goes to this retreat. She drinks this adaptogenic green juice that obviously has this effect on her. It has an effect on everybody. You know, so I don't know. I guess I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit to say it's not like Poison Ivy, you know, this was in character for. It wasn't really in character for any of these women. A lot of them, you know, they're all probably married soccer moms, right? And they're all going crazy. They may not even necessarily be homosexual, but yet they're having these, you know, lesbian experiences.
Yeah,
I put it more on the kind of the environment and what the manipulations of this health nut guru that Janet is into, you know, that kind of set up this whole retreat, this glop retreat. I don't know if she's supposed to be like a pastiche for Gwyneth Paltrow or what, but
I don't.
yeah. So you know, I wasn't necessarily holding that against Poison Ivy, although you know, to kind of see your side of it, she does say, "I'm good at recognizing when I'm about to do something I know I'll regret later. I'm much less good at stopping myself from doing it." But again, that seems to be everybody at this retreat. They're all sort of under the influence of this drug or what have you. So
yeah.
um,
I know,
you know,
it's
I kind of
shocking.
figured that,
It's shocking. I know, because this is a story about a group of women that all turn into lesbians because of some mist or some drug or something. And like, what am I complaining about? And I get it. I get it. This is out of character for me to do this, but it's just, I think it's out of character for Poison Ivy, especially given what I thought her character arc was for me. But anyways, I get it. There's an in-story explanation for it, but if she's self-aware that she's doing it, I can't believe she would betray Harley like that. I'm actually surprised, and I'm disappointed in her. I'm
Yeah,
paternal now.
again, I didn't. Maybe it's because I don't really care about the characters, so it doesn't really matter to me if she does something. It didn't necessarily seem that out of character to me. But yeah, the I mean, clearly the pastiche, like I said, for Gwyneth Paltrow, the character's name's Gwendolyn Caltrope. So take with that what you will. But yeah, it. I am a little surprised to hear you didn't enjoy the orgy scene. But anyway, moving on. Up next, we have the Flash number 794, written by Jeremy Adams, pencils by Roger Cruz, inks by Wellington Diaz and Roger Cruz, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Rob Lee. This issue is really a chance um, for Irie West to shine. She does a fantastic job of kind of stepping up kind of into her heroic role and even giving herself a code name. And then Jay Garrick, of all people, gets a big hero moment at the end with a splash page to continue the issue. So I thought this was a lot of fun. The only thing I'll say about the art, as I've said before, I don't know if it's because it's coming out every other week. I suspect that can't help. Just feel like Roger Cruz's pencils and line work were just better when he was doing his run on Robin. They're just not quite as sharp here. Still great storytelling and still sense of action and movement. But again, like the backgrounds are really light and the art's just not as clean as as I've seen from Roger Cruz before. But I'm really enjoying the characterization of this Flash family in the hands of Jeremy Adams. I'm really disappointed that he's leaving the book for Green Lantern, even though Green Lantern another one of my favorite characters. So I'm happy that Jeremy's going to be writing him, and I'm very much looking forward to what he's going to do. But I don't want him off Flash. I'm greedy. I want him writing Flash and Green Lantern. 2 books, he can easily handle that. So anyway, this is one of 2 Flash books we're going to talk about this week. But what were your thoughts on this one, Rock?
Well, I share your sentiment. First of all, this is my favorite comic of the week, but the best of the week. But as I said before, I was a little disappointed at all of them. I remain disappointed with the art. And from the beginning of this, I've said that I think it's a shame that of all the artists that Jeremy Adams has worked with since the beginning of his Flash run, if I could have, Roger Cruz is the last one that I would have wanted for this series, and it really, really shows the deficiencies in his art. He's just not up to task. I'm sorry, he isn't. The plot line here in the dialogue, I can get behind this story because it's a good story, but emotional high points in the story are lost because, in my view, art that just isn't up to task. And there are scenes with just the lack of lightning alone. They're supposed to be running fast, and I always get the feeling that everyone's standing still in this. But I'll give you an example of lost opportunities. In other words, I want to be very clear on this. That I'm showing a scene right now that is really cool. Superman can't access the Speed Force, but he's really fast. There's a scene where Superman is able, even though Superman is actually really slow, he manages to albeit slowly but fast enough, grab some of the hellhounds of Miss Murder to help Irie in the battle. But he's still really, really slow. The missed opportunity there artistically is that, and I don't think it worked for me, is we should have been able to see what Superman saw. We should have seen the battle from different perspectives. I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is a 60-second war. Why doesn't it feel like one? It doesn't feel like one to me, and that's the failure of the art. And it just doesn't work. Now there's emotion behind the scenes. Irie is lost to their understanding. They're not aware that Wally West is still alive, but Irie's under the impression that her father is dead. There's some emotional scenes later on in the issue. There's a scene where she even talks to Superman, thanking him. I would have liked to have seen Superman's perspective from that. The opportunities artistically here to illustrate a 60-second war, every single ounce of that, I don't see the type of creativity that should be literally visually should be everywhere in this series. But it's not, because this doesn't cut it. You said before the backgrounds are highly deficient. The other thing that throws me off is apparently Irie and Jay, there's a full page spread. Irie is actually using Jay. He's not moving, but she's using him like some sort of sledgehammer, like he's some sort of ball. And I don't even know how she's pulling him. She's pulling him on lightning, and she's literally throwing him against walls because he's like supposed to be invulnerable. Anyways, visually it looks terrible. It just doesn't look good. I think it's ridiculous. It doesn't work. It doesn't look good. And what does it accomplish? And there are scenes where when she's not using him, he just sort of stays and levitates in the air when she's not throwing him. This whole thing, this visually, this thing is not as good as it's not up to task for me. And if it sounds, now I want to be clear on this. This moves the story. This is actually a good narrative, and the dialogue is good. But it's lost on an art that is just not up to task for me. There are moments here where Barry Allen is upset because Barry Allen comes up with a cool plan. It looks like they got a plan. He can possibly undo everything that the Fraction has done and maybe reinstate everything to the way it should be. And then Jay Garrick, as you said, does do something heroic. In fact, I think artistically, the way that Roger Cruz sort of illustrates that particular sequence by actually, ironically enough, not showing it. We see Jay Garrick in a room where he incapacitates his captors and he comes up holding a big gun. That's kind of a cool scene. So there are moments here, but again, maybe I'm being harsh, but I had so much higher expectations. It's another example of editorially the editors not knowing that they had a hit with Jeremy Adams on their hand and assigning the wrong artist to a fantastic series. And I say that with great respect to Roger Cruz, but it's just this could have been so much better. It's as it stands, it's good, but it could have been better.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we know he's a talented artist. I think he's probably doing the best he can under the time constraints.
Yeah,
they should have given him, more time to get ahead on it if they wanted him to do the whole thing. So. All right, up next we have Adventures of Superman John Kent #1. This is from writer Tom Taylor. Clayton Henry is the artist, Jordi Belair on colors, Wes Abbott on letters. Countdown to Injustice, Chapter 1, Into the Multiverse. Everything that we've read here, and, it's right on the trade dress of the main cover, Road to Injustice, it says, leads me to believe we're going to get another Injustice title that's probably going to star John Kent. Because we know there's something else with John Kent coming after this, despite a certain narrative online that you might see that, Superman Son of Kal-El was canceled because of poor sales and everybody hates Tom Taylor and what have you. No, just a different title, continuing John Kent's story, whether you still think they'll de-age John Kent or not. I mean, really got to give up that dream if you do think that. But the other thing that's interesting about that, and you see it on the main cover, and we've seen it hinted at before, John Kent having some sort of other powers, maybe even blue electric-based powers, like a certain electric blue Superman that existed back in the 90s with a glow-in-the-dark cover and interesting powers. We've seen John manifest powers that are unlike anything his dad has had traditionally. So we see a little bit of that in this issue as well, and where that might go remains to be seen. What I really enjoyed about this issue, we knew that Tom Taylor, even when he came on our show, he teased it, that the big bad of the series is Ultraman himself. It's going to give John Kent a chance to sort of confront his demons, if you will, his captor. We know that Ultraman was the one who cost John Kent all those years, keeping him trapped in a volcano on Earth 3, part of the multiverse. And Val-Zod is sort of the mechanism that's going to allow John to have a chance to confront Ultraman. Ultraman is traveling around the multiverse, killing Superman. He has some way of weakening Kal-El's on a molecular level, we're told in this issue, which allows Ultraman to then murder them. So they don't, Val-Zod and the Red Tornado of Earth 2 go and recruit John when Superman is away from Earth, specifically because they know that Kal-El would never let his son go and put himself in danger. He would go himself, but then he would also be weakened. For whatever reason, Ultraman is hunting these different Kal-Els across the multiverse. It's a really interesting concept, interesting story. It's giving Tom Taylor a chance to write the Red Tornado of Earth 2 again, who's actually Lois Lane, and Val-Zod, another Earth 2 character. So I enjoy that. How Ultraman is doing it, we don't know. There is mystery. There's a voice talking to John Kent that we don't know exactly who it is. So there's still a lot of questions, still a lot of unknown. I like that. I like that Tom Taylor is probably going to leverage that mystery for a little while before we get answers. It may even lead into the next series, the Injustice series. What became of Amanda Waller on Earth 3 and the War for Earth 3 and all that, and why she's back in the main DC, we don't know. I know that if Jeremy Adams hadn't left Flash, he was hoping to tell that story. That would have been great to see, but maybe we'll get a in-universe explanation. Maybe it's Amanda Waller that John Kent is hearing. I don't know, but I will say this. We know why, from a practical standpoint, why DC ends series and starts over with new number ones. You get that bump with number ones, which isn't as big as it used to be. But if this is all, if Superman Son of Kal-El was John Kent's story and it's continuing into Adventures of Superman, into Injustice, I just wish they would just name the series John Kent Superman or something like that. Don't give us these 6-issue arcs that where each one is named something different. If it's all one continuous story, one long narrative from Tom Taylor as he's telling John Kent's story, then just put it all in one title. But maybe that's just my old school comic collecting self that wants it to last longer than 6 issues. Because I don't know, it just gets confusing. Like, where do I go next? And it's harder to explain to new readers. Well, yeah, the reason that Captain America 2 story doesn't continue into this Captain America 3 that you own is because this Captain America 2 you have is volume 4 and the Captain America 3 you have is volume 5, and you just see their eyes glaze over. It's super annoying. So anyway, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it more than I thought. I'm really excited for Val Zod. I'm really excited. I mean, maybe it's just because I like a lot of these characters. I love the Earth 2 stuff that Tom Taylor did, especially with Nicola on art, Nicola Scott. So I love Val Zod. I know there's rumors that we're going to get a Michael B. Jordan and Val Zod movie. I would love that. I think he's perfectly cast. I like the Lois Lane Red Tornado version. Ultraman has always been one of my favorite villains, maybe because Superman's my favorite hero. So this just checks off a lot of the boxes for me. And I'm even getting to the point where I'm sort of putting aside that John Kent hasn't earned Superman feeling or maybe it's just that I'm getting more used to him as Superman. And we've seen him do a lot of great things in his own title and kind of maturing as a character. I mean, I imagine I feel a lot like Clark and Lois do, in that I feel some sadness, some disappointment for the years of stories that I missed out on that we should have had with John Kent as a younger teenager. But this is good. This is good quality storytelling, and the Clayton Henry art is really great as well. I like Clayton Henry's style of art. I thought the colors actually could have been a little more primary. They're a little kind of pastel almost. And I say it all the time, when you talk about using primary colors, it really helps sell the feeling of being traditionally superheroic. And this is not quite there for me on the color work, but it's a minor nitpick overall. Visually, I thought this was a really great book, and yeah, I'm excited. This was probably my favorite title. I'm not putting that out there officially yet. I'll wait till the end, but I really enjoyed this. So, and I'm curious, Rocky, because for me this one really stood out. But I know you said that this was kind of a down week for you, so I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Well, what really disappointed me about this is, and here's the irony, this thing, I thought there was, for a first-time reader, this, don't worry, you're spoon-fed everything. But every single thing in this comic, we already knew. We already knew that Superman were being killed throughout the, we knew from what we read before. And there was an epic opening sequence here where Superman on another Earth is killed. But all I could think of as I'm reading this is, I want to play script doctor. I want to play script doctor. 6 pages is completely, utterly wasted with him flying around catching falling satellites. Why? Why? What a waste. 3 pages wasted on him talking to his boyfriend. Why? 9 pages completely, utterly wasted. That could have been an action scene showing the Earth, showing a battle sequence with Val Zod, with Red Tornado, Lois Lane, helping and losing in the battle and losing their Superman. Utterly wasted. I don't like the choices made here narratively. Now, having said that, is it okay? It's okay. I call it adequate and adequate. I'm not a fan of Clayton Henry's art. I never will be. But you know, but I thought this was boring. Now, having said that, and finally they meet. This was a glorified long conversation. He's, 6 pages with him, catching falling satellites, 3 pages of him talking to his boyfriend, another 12 pages of him talking to Val Zod, talking to Red Tornado, talking to his mommy. I mean, this was, and there wasn't the type of character work that I can normally say about Tom Taylor. Say, well, we got good character work. No, for me, this was disappointing. Now, having said all that, here's the silver lining in all this. Boy, oh boy, this is going to be pretty cool when finally there's an altercation. I'm looking forward, absolutely, when John Kent finally meets up with Ultraman. Absolutely. Also, highlights here that I really liked. I liked that Lois Lane got very upset at the suggestion that Val Zod and the Red Tornado Lois Lane were saying, we need John Kent to come with us. I like the fact that Lois Lane got upset and said, I'm not going to let him go with you to fight Ultraman. That man tortured my son. She actually said the word tortured. That's significant. Lois Lane has never, ever said, to my knowledge, in any previous storyline, was there any acknowledgement that her son was tortured by Ultraman? When Bendis portrayed that issue, he made it a joke. In fact, John Kent joked about it. He joked about how talky, quote unquote, talky Ultraman was. It was played as a joke. Now at least we have an acknowledgement. John Kent actually says he lost his childhood to Ultraman. Well, that's a nice acknowledgement. Lois Lane said he was actually tortured. Now here's the test. Here's what I want to know. Torture is a pretty strong word, Lois Lane. You're a reporter. I'm pretty sure you know what torture is. How did Ultraman torture your son? How? Specifically how? Mental abuse? Physical abuse? Sexual abuse? How? Now, and what my fear is that this entire series might be nothing but deflection, and we're going to go off into another universe, namely the Injustice universe, where the entire story, instead of being a story about him and his relationship and the fact that he was tortured by Ultraman, it's going to be about John Kent being heroic and talking Injustice Superman out of being evil, which in my view completely misses the point. And that's what I hope we're not going to be doing, because I fear that's kind of where this is going. I want to see a battle between Ultraman and John Kent. And if this becomes basically a glorified battle between Injustice Superman and Ultraman and John Kent caught in the middle, and it's not dealing with the issues, I'm really curious to see where it goes. So once again, I find myself simultaneously kind of excited, mostly disappointed. This was all setup issue for me because it told me stuff I already knew. But here's the thing for new readers that I can tell you, you got every reason to be excited. Earth 2, New 52, Earth 2, and Earth 2 Society was awesome. Tom Taylor wrote those series. They were really good. Red Tornado Lois Lane is an awesome character. It's going to be cool to see her. Val Zod is an awesome character. Seeing these characters moving forward is going to be really, really exciting. And maybe I'm just a little bit ornery this week, but I wanted more in this issue. I wanted more substance. And my fear is that, that we're not going to get it, and this is going to become too decompressed. But my fingers are crossed moving forward. And again, I'm more optimistic than anything else. But this is a really, really spoon-feeding issue for brand new readers. And I think in the long run, that's probably a good thing. And it's probably a good thing that maybe I didn't get my way, because we have to attract more readers to this title, because I want John Kent to be a hero that succeeds and has a wider audience than he currently has, in my view.
Yeah, I didn't really I get it. This is a number one, and yes, it is set up issue to some extent, which again goes back to what I was just saying. Like, why can't we just? It didn't need to be restarted with Adventures of Superman, John Kent #1. Like, we could have just kept it as Superman, Son of Kal-El, and continue the story. Then maybe you don't need as much of this setup. But being that it's a number one, I get it. But the other part that I sort of disagree with what you're saying is, I don't feel that those pages with John Kent talking to his boyfriend were wasted. I didn't feel that the pages of him knocking out the satellites were wasted either, because it was setting up that meeting of Val Zod. He mentions, hey, someone else has taken out some of the satellites. You're wondering who it is. I kind of liked that story structure, because I'm wondering, is it Ultraman who's kind of teasing John Kent, showing that he's more powerful than him because he's moving so fast he can't even tell who it is. Turns out to be Val Zod. Again, it's just kind of people who aren't familiar with Val Zod get to know how powerful Val Zod is. Um, you know, the moments where he's talking to his boyfriend, it's a reminder that his secret identity has been reestablished. But it's also an insight. It is some character work into John Kent, how relieved he is to not have his identity out there. And so, yeah, I didn't necessarily feel that they were wasted. Could it have been done more succinctly? Yeah, maybe. But I'm going to give Tom Taylor the benefit of the doubt when it comes to pacing. Although I do feel like, both of us have talked about it with Nightwing. It is probably, in my opinion, the weakest part of his storytelling. And not necessarily I'm saying that his pacing is always slow. It's not consistent. And maybe that's on purpose. Maybe he likes to speed up and slow down his pacing, but sometimes it can make for uneven reading. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited for what this title has, and I'm sort of curious if your opinion of the first issue might change if the payoff in the end is really really great. So I guess we'll have
Yeah,
to see.
we shall.
Um, this one I actually was disappointed in. I'm curious to see if you agree. Monkey Prince number 12, part 4 of 4, The Monkey King and I, from writer Jean Luen Yang. Art by Bernard Chang. Marcelo Mayalo is the color artist. Janice Chang on letters. Um, it wraps up the Monkey King maxi series, the 12-issue series, in a satisfying way. And we learn the origin of the Monkey King, his true origin, which I felt was fitting, and that all worked. But where it kind of was disappointing for me, it was this was billed as kind of the epilogue, or the period on the end of the sentence for Lazarus Planet, which ultimately felt like a pretty disappointing event, honestly. Um, but this didn't really feel like it had much to do with Lazarus Planet at all, other than another quick fight with um, Red Bull King, or whatever his name is, King Red Bull. Um, yeah, I mean, it didn't feel necessary as that. So I kind of feel like it shouldn't have necessarily, Lazarus Planet shouldn't even really been mentioned with this. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, this felt in keeping um, with what Monkey Prince was all along, and it does feel like he's very much has been incorporated into the main DC universe, which I know is one of the big goals for this creative team. So they succeeded very, very well on that front. Um, and so, yeah, I think if this hadn't been billed as kind of the period on the end of the sentence for Lazarus Planet, I probably wouldn't have been disappointed at all, because it is a good conclusion to the Monkey Prince story, but it just didn't feel like it added much to the Lazarus Planet at all. But maybe that's just perfect, right? Because Lazarus Planet was so underwhelming.
Yeah.
But in terms of the story of Monkey Prince, it certainly feels like there's more to come. And this is one of those series that ends with what's kind of become a trope or a cliche, with, instead of the end, it's the beginning, or this is just the beginning, or whatever they put on the last page. But yeah, I liked the last couple pages, especially because it's in Marcus's own voice, Marcus Toe, who is the Monkey Prince. He's saying, well, here's kind of the state of affairs. Here's where everything is. Yes, I've gone through all of this crazy stuff, and everything is still up in the air with my family. I feel like my parents are going to go back to being henchmen. My grandfather is this, big supervillain, the Ultra Humanite. Um, Everything is up in the air. I'm behind on homework, but that's okay because I'm the mother flipping Monkey Prince. So it felt very on brand, and very. This entire series has felt very consistent in tone, and you can tell the creative team has had a lot of fun in doing it. So, I've come to really like the Monkey Prince as a character throughout this 12-issue series. When he was first announced, when he first showed up, I think in that one shot with filled with different Asian characters, I was kind of like, he almost felt like a little bit of tokenism as a character, like, oh, they don't have like a Chinese character, or a character that's coming from Chinese folklore, so they're just kind of, this guy's going to be this sort of generic cardboard cutout with all the different pastiches. Um, but no, the creative team, they made Marcus much more interesting, much more relatable than that. And yeah, I find myself, I wouldn't put him, up there among my favorites, but he's an interesting character. And we've seen him in the hands of some other artists where it's been kind of a more mature style. Not that I don't enjoy Bernard Chang's style. I think it works really well for the way Gene Luen Yang writes the Monkey Prince. But it's going to be really interesting to see the Monkey Prince in the hands of other creators as he becomes part of the greater DCU. So yeah, I feel overall this was really well done, and it'll probably read really well in a trade. So, what were your thoughts on the conclusion of Monkey Prince?
Well, unfortunately, what makes this 12 issue series really wonky is the fact that it did overlap with Lazarus Planet. At the same time, Lazarus Planet did put Monkey Prince more on the map and I think introduced them to a wider audience. So it was a double-edged sword. So it was kind of a good thing, but I think it disrupted the flow of what would have been a more cohesive narrative for these 12 issues. It would be interesting to see when they collect Monkey Prince as a full trade, full 12 issues or the second trade, if they're going to incorporate or how they're going to explain all the events of Lazarus in order to make, frankly, the last 6 issues make more sense, because there's a lot of story there. But interesting. And to the credit here, I think that the one character that benefited the most from Lazarus Planet was Monkey Prince, which is ironic because it was one of the few that actually just has a 12-issue series. It doesn't even have an ongoing series. And you could certainly argue that Monkey Prince benefited the most. His relationship with Supergirl began not liking him. His relationship with Supergirl, who he has a crush on, that improves dramatically here. He saves Supergirl's life. They help each other. He defeats King Bullfire. He learns the lesson not to use lethal force, not to kill. So a lot of the lessons one thing that we can say for certain over these 12 issues is that we've seen Monkey Prince grow as a character, and it's felt organic. I'll agree with you that maybe at the beginning that maybe there was a little bit of tokenism there, but it did grow on me, because I remember in the first issue we reviewed, I was lost. As I told you, I didn't know what the hell is this mythology. This he loses his head, and what the hell is this character? And then, well, he's part of a Japanese or something mythology. Okay, and but to the credit of Gene Yun Yang, I mean, this has sort of grown on me as a character, and I'm curious moving forward. I really love this setup. It sort of restored the status quo with a twist. His parents are still, even though they're not his real parents, he was born in the Phantom Zone as an offspring of King Red Bull or King Firebull. I'm butchering that, whatever, unimportant. Bottom line is his parents, his adoptive parents, the ones that they saved him, they are sort of minions of supervillains. And his grandfather also has some nanites implanted in him, and he's sort of like the ultra humanite in his spare time. So he's got probably one of the most fascinating and interesting family units of all the DC characters, and there's so much potential here for Monkey Prince moving forward. So we'll have to see. But overall, not a bad ending to a 12-issue series, and it did manage to get some extra highlights because of a big event.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. All right, up next we have Batman number 133, main story written by Chip Zdarsky. Mike Hawthorne does the pencils, Adriano Di Benedetto on inks, Tomeo More on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters, and then we have the backup with Tim Drake and Toyman. That is also written by Chip Zdarsky. The art in that is by Miguel Mendoca. We've got Roman Stevens on colors and Clayton Cowell on letters. So in the main story, as hinted last time, Bruce Wayne has adopted the identity of Batman in this new Gotham he's in, with another part of the multiverse. We get a chance this time to see this world's version of the Riddler. And we get to see, as I said, Bruce Wayne as Batman, start to see some hints about who this Red Mask might be. He shows what appears to be lightning-based speed powers. So could he be related to the Flash family in some way? Remains to be seen. Some interesting interactions with both this world's Alfred and this world's Selina Kyle, and Bruce Wayne. So even though as I've said throughout, this Zdarsky run feels a little bit derivative. It feels like we've seen some of these ideas before, and that's not necessarily anything new with Zdarsky. I certainly feel that way with his Daredevil run, but in his Daredevil run, it's I don't know, it works better for me. Maybe just because I've read less Daredevil, I'm not sure. It seems more grounded in emotion and less so here. Here it's a little more over the top, and I struggle with a little bit more, like doing things like having Batman fall all the way to Earth from outer space and live, which I just find to be ludicrous or what have you. But I am enjoying this. Um, it is interesting to see Batman in an environment where it's kind of what we were promised by Tynan, but it never really felt like it was delivered. Um, in terms of Bruce Wayne not having his fortune, right, and not having all of the accoutrements that come with it, all the ability to have the gadgets and what have you. But it never really, I feel like we never really felt that effect fully, because he still had the brownstone. He had in downtown, he had the micro caves and what have you. But this is really a Bruce Wayne without a lot of resources, being that he's on this world. He's having to makeshift costume, and he really doesn't have the resources here. So I find that to be interesting. And the Mike Hawthorne art, Mike Hawthorne, his art tends to have thicker lines, and really feel a little more solid, a little less fluid. But because of the sort of the brutality of this world that Bruce Wayne finds himself in right now, it sort of works on that level. This is a Selena Kyle that's a little less on the beautiful side and more on kind of the really kind of strong, almost masculine features. But again, it works for the world that Zdarsky is inhabiting right now with Batman. So yeah, I'm enjoying this, even though a lot of the things, like I said, feel a little bit derivative. Here we go with Arkham again. Oh, it's not Arkham Tower, it's not Arkham Manor, it's not Arkham Asylum. Now we have the Arkham Caves. So just again, mining ground that's been trod on before. But I guess as long as the story's entertaining, I'll go along for the ride. So what are your thoughts, Rocky?
Well, the multiversal angle is, I was hoping Zardasky would at least do something different with it, and I think he has. I'm more or less entertained. I like the fact that this Bruce Wayne has become Batman in this other Earth, and he's kicking ass. He's kicking ass. He handily defeats the Riddler. He handily defeats Catwoman. He handily defeats a venomized Harvey Dent, and he's kicking ass. And he's already determined multiversal energy on the corpse of Bruce Wayne, of that Earth's Bruce Wayne. He's already confronted Alfred, and he's made it clear that he tells this planet, this Earth's Alfred, that he loved his Alfred, and he's not messing around. He's getting things done. He's doing what he does. He's Batman. This world maybe doesn't have a Batman, but it has one now, and he's kicking ass. He's taking names. He's doing his job. It just goes to show you, man. It doesn't matter where you put Bruce Wayne, Batman. He's going to be Batman, and that's what I like about this. And now, of course, Chip Zdarsky is the same guy that had Batman, fall from the moon, and so it's not surprising he's going to kick some ass if you throw him on an alternate Earth. I like this aspect here, and I like that this ends with, basically instead of an Arkham Tower, they have Arkham Caves. And so, in a sense, not a heck of a lot happens in this issue, but yet, in a way, kind of a lot, very important things happen because it establishes Bruce Wayne is Batman again, and he's really already made a huge name and presence for himself on this alternate Earth. Even though this Earth is one where Bruce Wayne is dead, Bruce Wayne is back as Batman, and he's doing a great job getting noticed, and the Red Mask is taking notice. The Red Mask does seem to move with a red mist. It reminds me a little bit of like the red mist in under Bendis with Superman, although I don't think that's what it is. I really, strangely enough, I don't have any idea who the Red Mask is. I actually don't know. I don't even have a guess, to be honest with you. I like your guess that maybe it's a speedster of some kind. Maybe it's a twisted form of Wally West or some damn thing. Who the hell knows? It doesn't have to be in Batman's Rogues Gallery. But Zdarsky has me guessing, or has me sort of buffaloed here. I don't know what's going on in terms of who the Red Mask is.
Did you mention last issue that maybe it was that world's Bruce Wayne? And I thought that was a good theory, but clearly not. As we see,
Yeah,
this world's Bruce Wayne, his corpse gets dug up.
that's exactly right.
So
So who knows? And and then just and the backup here, I don't think the backup here, we can talk about it now. I mean, I didn't think much happened in the backup. I mean, Tim Drake defeats the Toyman. Presumably he's on the same Earth, defeats the Toyman, and now he wants to, once he defeats the Toyman, now he's ready to do what he has to do to try to find where Batman is. And so I didn't find the backup particularly enlightening or providing any clues as to who Red Mask is or how necessarily Batman's, we know that eventually Batman's going to get out of the universe he's trapped in. I just kind of find the backups, they remain largely superfluous to me. I'm not sure to what extent they're really necessary, but or how Zardasky's going to tie them in. I just think it's just taking up space to justify a larger price point. I still feel that way, but what do you think of the backup?
no, I feel the same way. I will say we did talk last time about how we felt that the Miguel Mendoca art wasn't quite up to the standard that we've seen from Miguel before, and I think it possibly is because of working with a new color artist. There's no inker here, so you're going directly from digital pencils to Roman Stevens coloring it. I will give credit to Stevens. The art in this particular issue feels like an improvement over last issue. So probably just a case of him getting used to working with Miguel and Miguel's lines. So I thought the art was a lot better. I really kind of enjoy the costume um, that Tim Drake is wearing. It sort of reminds me of the costume that Billy Batson was wearing in that Earth 2 weekly back in the day. When he was pretending to be Superman, but he's wearing like this motorcycle-like helmet because he wasn't really Superman. He didn't want anyone to recognize that he wasn't. Um, this is a costume created by Mr. Terrific that Tim Drake's wearing, and then once he goes to this place in the multiverse, which, yeah, as Rocky said, it might be the same Earth that Bruce is on. It might not be, but where the Toyman is, and the Toyman has taken other people from the main Earth there. So Tim's got to go and track them all down, put a special disc on all of them, and then he activates the suit and it pulls them all back to the main Earth. So just a reminder of how incredibly intelligent Mr. Terrific is. And again, I thought the costume looked really cool, and it was really great. I enjoyed seeing it. As far as is this necessary? No, it is not necessary at all. I totally agree with Rocky that it's just kind of an excuse to charge a higher price point, because what's happening here with Tim going to this other part of the multiverse and saying, okay, I'm going to kidnap the Toyman, bring him back and interrogate him so we can find out, where Batman is. That can be done with 2 or 3 panels in the main story. Easily done in the main story. We're getting a lot more than that here. Is it necessary? Is it needed? Probably not. Is it great to see more Miguel Mendoca art? Yeah, it is. So, but yeah, these backups, I'm ready for them to go away completely. At least, I'll say in defense of it, at least this backup has something tangentially to do with the main story, unlike the backup we get in Wonder Woman every month,
Yeah.
which has nothing to do with it. So
Yeah.
anyway, moving on. Batman and the Joker, Deadly Duo #5, story and art by Mark Silvestri, colors by Arif Prianto, letters by Troy Petrie. Man, this is so good. It's so good. Mark Silvestri drawing Batman continues to be fantastic. There's a Gary Frank alternate cover on this one as well that was really great. But I continue to be impressed with the story and the narrative that Mark Silvestri's doing. I mean, we all know what a brilliant artist he is. He doesn't let us down. The art has been spectacular throughout. I love that they give us inked pages in the back of each of these books where we don't see the colors. We just see Mark Silvestri's line work, and he's inking himself. So, again, it's all his line work. It's not interpreted through anybody else, and it continues to be amazing. But I expect that from Mark. Mark has been doing that for decades. What I wasn't necessarily expecting was the strength of the storytelling. This is such a fascinating story. The idea of loss and revenge, tying in with the Joker, because that was my kind of my worry. I was worried I was going to be disappointed. God, I'm so sick of the Joker and teaming him up with Batman. But this isn't at all a Joker that's in any way redeeming himself or on the road to redemption. You can feel the tension, the disappointment, the anger that Batman has toward him. His reluctance to work with him. That's reiterated by Batgirl showing up in this issue, and it's an awesome scene with her basically beating the crap out of the Joker, as you would expect her to do based on the events of the Killing Joke. Um, and Bruce showing up and stopping her, and again, that reluctance. It's such great character work from Silvestri. Um, and you could just see the look on Bruce's face, because he knows that Barbara doesn't approve of him working with the Joker, but he has no choice. And again, it's great character work, and we basically have the big bad revealed of who's behind everything. We thought it was Donald Sims. Turns out not necessarily to be the case, of who's actually behind this disease, this virus, this parasite, whatever you want to call it, that's infecting everybody, and it's horrific in a way, but in a way that's like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. What a great story from Silvestri. I want him to do more of this type of stuff. I want him to do more Batman. But at the same time, God, it took him 5 years to do this. It took a long time, and you can see it in the artwork. How fantastic it is, how that time has been spent. But at the end of the day, he's Mark Silvestri, and he doesn't have to put out a monthly book, to pay the bills like some other artists do. So he can afford to take his time, and we're getting a quality story. But the greedy comic book fan in me wants this on a monthly basis. Like, give Mark Silvestri a monthly Batman book. He could never do it, right? Not and give this high quality art and story. But man, if we could even get like a 6-issue mini each year from him on Batman, wow! I just continue to be impressed with this. It's really, really good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was good. I thought this was good. I didn't think. I think a lot of the. Strangely enough, I thought a lot of the clues that. A lot of the revelations here, I thought the clues were enough in previous issues that this was almost kind of sort of predictable, and yet it plays so well as a wonderful revelation. One thing I want to give Silvestri really a lot of credit for is the big reveal here. This Edward Sims, his daughter was killed at her own wedding. Basically, the Joker. Batman was chasing the Joker back in the early years of Gotham, and Joker crashed into a wedding. It was Edward Sims' daughter's wedding. A lot of people ended up getting killed, including Edward Sims' daughter. And as the years went on, Edward Sims developed a number of viruses, a number of different types of medicines, and one of them was something that cured cancer, but it also enhanced reflexes and everything else. And it also seemed to have an impact on dead tissue. And I love the way that the big reveal here, we're never actually told who the big bad is, and it's brilliant. All we get is Batman's narration that said, I'd pored over the data, seen what Sims' research was capable of. I saw the gravesite, but I had hoped that what now stands before me was simply not possible. And then it shows her. And it doesn't say who she is, but if you've been reading this story, you know exactly who it is. And even though it looks like a tortured, horrific version of this particular character, you know who it is. And the fantastic art of Silvestri hammers that moment home so viscerally. It's very, very well done. This is the visuals in this comic enhance the story, because in the hands of a different artist, this story could be, this story would not necessarily hit as hard as it has. This is very well done. And the art here, particularly upon, I've read this because we took longer this week to do the reviews, and there wasn't a lot of comic books to review this week. I read these comics more than once, and I will admit that visually, the art told the story. I didn't even have to read a lot of the art, but the dialogue here, I mean, who would have thought? I would never have guessed that Silvestri's dialogue was as good as his art in places. So overall, it was quite impressive, and I'm looking forward to see how this thing wraps up, because I believe it's only 6 issues, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's again been a long time coming. It was announced so long ago. I think 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, at San Diego Comic-Con. So,
yeah,
I'm very curious to how it all wraps up as well. Okay, up next we have Static Shadows of Dakota #2. There's no creator page in the press preview we got. We know that it's co-written by Nicholas Draper Ivy and Vita Ayala. We know Nicholas Draper Ivy does the art. Beyond that, I'm sorry, I can't give any credit. This was not really that interesting to me. It feels like we're treading over ground that we've already went over in Static Season 1. That was written by Vita Ayala and Nicholas Draper Ivy, along with Chris Koss did the art in that one. Uh, Draper Ivy's handling the art duties, himself singularly this time, and the art's really strong. But again, it doesn't feel like it feels like it's dragging a little bit. It doesn't feel like it's really paced that quickly. Um, and I sort of miss the supporting cast of Static's family that we had. That they were such a strong part of the season one. They haven't shown up at all here. They're mentioned, but they haven't shown up at all here in season two. So I don't know. This isn't really working for me that well, and it feels like I said like not much has happened in these first two issues. That it's kind of dragging out for me a little bit. But I don't know. Maybe you're getting a different vibe, Rocky. What do you think?
Well, I don't mind. I agree with you that they're exploring the same sort of general plot idea, but I kind of expect that because the plot idea was only touched upon in the first six issues and the first volume of six issues because we have to remember that there are still a number of different groups. We have a government group that's sort of malevolent, and we also have a sort of a citizen terrorist group that are looking to harm the bang babies, and a government group looking to find the bang babies and to sort of experiment on them and to control them. And so they're still running amok, and Static is still dealing with that. And now, having said that, there are, as one of the things that I think works in this issue, for me, what worked for me is, we did meet some other characters, and Static, people know Static as being a bang baby because Static was the one that he actually rescued a group of people, of young kids, in the first volume from the government forces that want to basically experiment on them. And so he's sort of, I think he's starting to build up a little bit of a rep, and he meets a young blonde here who basically, she comes with him with a secret, and she can bend steel. She's got like super strength, and, but she doesn't know what to do, and she's afraid to say anything, and she doesn't want, Static is telling her, well, that's amazing. And so there is a little bit of we've said this before. This has an X-Men vibe to it, but I like this. Now, I'm not an expert on X-Men, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is better than the X-Men. I don't read enough X-Men to know. I can tell you this is a hell of a lot more accessible than the X-Men. And this is, in my view, the X-Men done with a more of a modern day sensibility, and I'm enjoying it. And so, if you don't need you don't need to get tied up in a bunch of continuity. You can pick up even this second issue and still get a pretty good sense in terms of what the plot line is and where it's going. The art is really fantastic. It remains really good. And the use of lightning here is fantastic. I mean, incidentally, you want to talk about a 1 minute war? Good Lord, I would have loved Draper Ivy here on 1 minute war. I think that would have been fantastic. But the way that he does motion and everything here is just incredible. And in any event, there's a young child here that ultimately Static will end up needing to protect, called Quincy, who seems to be the focal point of the center of attention, the focus of this malevolent group that's looking for the bang babies. And so the mystery is building at the end of this first issue, and I'm not collecting all the DC Comics review. I don't buy the physical copies but I buy the physical copies of Static because even though we do give lip service to it, I do think it's one of the more underrated comics that DC has, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm hoping it speeds up a little. And again, I'm missing that supporting cast, but maybe that's just me, personal preference. So, all right, last book we're going to talk about in detail this week: The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing, #6, from writer Matthew Rosenberg. Carmine Di Giandomenico is the artist, Arif Prianto on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. A bit of a departure from what we've had. This one focuses all on one Joker, the crime lord Joker, not the one that has been the focus of the book for the last couple of issues that we last saw being dragged off by Solomon Grundy. So it's kind of an interesting take. He's in LA. he doesn't feel the town gave him the respect that he deserved while he was there, so he takes it upon himself to blow up a bunch of police stations, and then he's trying to get to the airport, and he can't get through all the chaos. So I'm not. I sort of feel like I don't know what the point of this is,
I'm with
and
you.
it's a reminder. Yeah, it's a reminder that there's two different Jokers in this book, and we don't really know what the hell's going on. And this is issue number 6. So, I don't know if this is an ongoing. I don't know how many issues it's going to be if it's not an ongoing. Um, it was mildly entertaining, I guess. I mean, if you like the Joker, you probably really love this. As we all know, I'm a little bit jokered out these days. So for me, this was only okay. What were your thoughts?
Well, I will say this, that I actually thought, I've been, I get into a little bit of a tiff at some of my buddies at the comic shop. They don't find, I actually find Matthew Rosenberg, I actually find his humor. Most of the time I do laugh at it. It gets me a chuckle, and I liked his humor I like the humor he gives Grifter, and in Wildcats, and even the stand-up comedian here. I mean, this is extremely tropey in one hand, but there's a stand-up comedian here who's basically doing comedy, and the Joker, he's afraid the Joker's going to kill him, and of course that's ultimately what happens. But in the meantime, you have to entertain the Joker, and the Joker wants him to tell him jokes. I actually thought some of the jokes were funny. I thought the comedian did a good job. I wouldn't have killed a comedian, but maybe some people, are less forgiving as I am. Unfortunately, the comedian did mention, of course, Batman, and of course, you mentioned Batman to the Joker. You're going to upset him. But I share your sentiment that the rest of it, we knew last issue that the Joker was leaving. Who we think is the real Joker is going to travel to Gotham City to deal with this fake Joker himself, because Clayface failed to deal with him, and so this seems to. So on the way to get back to Gotham, he's in L.A. And for whatever reason, he stops in LA for a drink at a comedy club instead of just going straight to Gotham. I didn't get it. I don't really understand it. We get a bunch of scenes which I don't understand the point of it. Nothing in here built the central mystery or provided any further clues as to who the fake Joker is, or any sort of like enlightening sort of information or anything of the kind. It just seemed to be the Joker sort of, enjoying LA. There's even a full page spread where he says, "I love LA," and he's just the Joker being the Joker. And that's fine. I mean, let's not forget, this is called the Joker comic after all, and it does star the Joker, not mostly Commissioner Gordon like the first series did. So that some people complained about. But and I don't understand Rosenberg's propensity showing, okay, well, this is Melrose, this is Gotham, and then we jump to the observatory, and then I'm not really sure what the point of all this is, as you said, because it's not moving I don't really feel it's moving the narrative. I don't see what the point of it is. And then, I mean, I guess there's kind of a funny scene where there's a cosplayer dressed up like Batman, and he's doing selfies with the Joker on the street, and the Joker ends up shooting him. And again, I'm like you. I kind of chuckle at it. It's kind of funny. So some of these scenes I'm not saying I'm not being entertained. I keep asking myself, how does this tie in, just other than just showing us chaos in the form of the Joker, which we know, how does this tie into the larger story? Maybe I just got to sit back and relax and say, hey, this is a Joker story after all. How stupid am I to expect that a Joker story has to make sense all the time? We're talking about an agent of chaos. So let him do chaotic things. I should cut Rosenberg some slack, perhaps. And but I'm just at the end, he's leaving LA, and then out of the blue, Manhunter shows up. Well, that just seems really contrived and out of the blue, and like, why? I don't, like I said, I don't really get it. And once again, good night. So I don't really get it. And of course that flows into the backup, which once again, I don't really quite understand the point of the backup either, but I'll let you comment on the backup. Or did you even read the backup?
No, I read the backup. I don't have anything to say about the backup. It doesn't add anything in my mind. I know a lot of the backups have been nonsensical. This might be the most nonsensical of them all. It just, yeah, it didn't feel
Yeah.
like it was really worth spending my time reading, to be honest with you. So yeah, don't have anything to add about the backup
Yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah, literally. And for those people listening, if you're wondering that, if you think that Jason and I are just being so completely dismissive, how can we not say anything? It's actually hard. I'm challenged right now. It's only like 8 pages long. I'm looking at it and I'm trying to actually make some sense out of it. I mean, and it's actually hard. It's just literally the Joker walks into a house where there's Gorilla Grodd with a family, and he starts to attack the kids, and then he's flashing back with two Joker looking babies in a crib, and then he's seeing a funeral, and then he's reading something, and I'm literally I'm trying to make sense of this, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. It's just I can't even call it organized chaos, and it's just
Yeah, I mean, basically, Joker goes to visit. Well, this Joker supposedly has a job as a clown. He has a wife. He has a daughter. He shows up. Jackanapes is there, kills the Joker, and then there's another Joker. So the Joker that gets killed has a brother. One is named Ralph. One is named Edward. The one that is killed leaves in his will a list of things for the other to go and do. And as the other goes and does all these things, he becomes the Joker. So it's kind of the circular thing, but yeah, it didn't really. Yeah, it's it's rough. Yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah. Again, I didn't understand the point of it. Was really kind of, yeah, really hard. Yeah. These backups could be the worst ones of all. These Joker backups. We don't even have Frank art to look at this time. So anyway, anything to add more about the regular story?
No, I got nothing to add. I just now I just gotta. I'm trying to do my. I'm thinking in the back of my head. Why don't you go first? Tell me your pick of the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Adventures of Superman, John Kent. I just really enjoyed it. Maybe a lot for the buildup of what's to come. Just a sense of mystery, how many answers there still are to come about what exactly is going on, and yeah, building up the tension for that eventual John Kent Ultraman face-off. I'm really enjoying, but I'll give an honorable mention to Batman Joker Deadly Duo because that was really really great as well.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna go with Batman the Joker Deadly Duo. The more I talked about it and hearing your comments on it, I think I would. I would have to go with. I think generally I'd have to go with that. So yeah. So yeah, Batman
Yeah,
Deadly
you
Joker.
guys.
And go
Yeah,
ahead.
you guys have probably already been to the comic shop this week, but in case you haven't, there is a one shot called the Flash 1 Minute War Start the Clock. It actually collects the first three issues of the Flash with 1 Minute War. So if you want to get caught up with 1 Minute War and you weren't buying those issues of Flash, or your shop doesn't have them anymore, you can pick up this one shot, and it has, as I said, the first three issues, first three chapters of the 1 Minute War. And I think you'll probably end up saving a little bit of money too, because I think it's probably $6.99 as opposed to if you bought the three issues, 790, 791, 792, you'd end up spending more than that. In terms of collections this week, there's a couple of them, starting with The Nice House on the Lake, Volume 2, which collects the last 6 issues of that fantastic series from James Tynion and Alvaro Martinez Bueno. Also, Batman Superman World's Finest, Volume 1, The Devil Nezha. That's Mark Waid writing and Dan Muro with some excellent art. Batgirls Volume 2, Batgirl Summer. It also has a collection coming out. The latest in Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo's young adult DC graphic novels, Teen Titans Robin. Previously we've had Teen Titans Beast Boy and Teen Titans Raven. Now they're tackling Robin. Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, Book 2 trade paperback is out. This is collecting the Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes from back New 52 days. It collects issues 13 through 25. And then there's also an exclusive edition with a different cover of the Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo Teen Titans Robin graphic novels. So those are the collected editions this week. Pretty solid week, as I said. Rocky felt it was a little less so. But I do have to say I'm in agreement. I think Rocky and I are both in agreement these days that DC is underachieving right now. And I was hoping for a little more with this dawn of DC. It seems like it's rolling out slowly. I sort of have mixed feelings about that. It's like if you're going to do a publishing initiative and try to change the tone or direction of the line, it should be all at once, I feel like. But at the same time, if they weren't ready for that, I certainly don't want them to rush. But, I think a lot of this goes back to all the events, and I've talked about the event fatigue I'm feeling with DC right now a lot. But we had this Dark Crisis, which was eventually Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it was supposed to, change so much or whatever, and it's like that ended with a bit of a whimper. Dawn of DC didn't pick up right after it. It's rolling out slowly. And yeah, it just feels like the whole line, if I had to sum it up in one word right now, lost. It feels a little directionless.
Speaking of Lost, I think next week we have Superman Lost, which is the actual name of on the title. So
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like maybe it was just that Dan Didio was such a larger than life presence, and it felt like there was somebody steering the ship. It doesn't feel like anybody's steering the ship at DC right now. It just feels like it's kind of meandering all over the place.
And I would just make the general comment that, I don't need a big event. And I know DC has one coming out in the summer. I don't care. I don't need a big event at all. Just give me consistent stories. I just want to feel, like you said, we just want to feel like there's a direction for these characters moving forward. And we finally get a direction for Flash, where Jeremy Adams has put a lot of lipstick on the pig following Heroes in Crisis. And just when he's really firing on all cylinders, literally like his own type of Flash, he's on Green Lantern. God bless Green Lantern. I can't wait to see what Jeremy Adams brings to Green Lantern. But, I hope that, it's kind of foolish. Even this compilation with 1 Minute War, Start the Clock, collecting the first 3 issues of Flash. I mean, it clearly, it's almost as if DC sort of finally read the tea leaves. Oh my God, Jeremy Adams is popular. Oh my God, his Flash run, people actually like it. It's like, where have they been? Where's editorial been for the last 2 years when we've been talking about this guy? I mean, come on. But in any event, God bless Jeremy Adams. And hopefully, I don't suppose you have an interview with him coming up in the foreseeable future, do you?
I don't, but I imagine when Green Lantern gets close, probably will.
Awesome. I look forward to that. So in any event, we shall... I guess everybody, if you're watching, go to the Comic Source podcast. Listen to this as a podcast, and it's on Apple Podcasts, where all podcasts can be found. And if you can hit the like button here, hit the subscribe button, follow me on Comic Boom YouTube channel. And anything to add, Jace?
No, just again, we apologize. This came out late. Hopefully that won't be the case next week. But yeah, my job, I've just been having to travel a lot for work. So we appreciate you guys hanging in there. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
All right. And we're out of here.